All right, let's talk about Senway today. Hopefully you've been staying on top of your Rise of Heroes event and grabbing your frags for him as you're able. We've got him up to Immortal on the main account, and we've been playing around with him a little bit. He's actually crazy good. So I figured we would just take a quick look at him today. I'll show you him in action. I wish it was easier to go back and show you what he can do in multiple phases of the game, but like I can't jump backwards in story or soul mine and show you progress that I've gained or where he can shine, and I can't put him in a team that's going to get me through 3720 right now. You know what I mean? I'm having to put the best of the best in to continue progressing. So one thing that I'll show you really quickly though is he does now have a spot on my fastest Kinsaro 15 team. This is the team I run, and obviously Ravenna is going crazy in here, but I'll show you what this run looks like because I don't think it's going to be one that's going to fail. My old team wasn't failing at all, and I had Bot Mark II in the back so that he could, you know, do what he does with his crits and stuff, but I decided to swap in Sinway just to see what it would look like, and he, again, obviously is not going to keep up with Ravenna, but he contributes really heavily to the damage, and he speeds this run up a lot. So I guess this will be interesting to see if they do it again, like on the spot. I haven't tested this one out a bunch to see how reliable it's going to be, but the way they ran through it last time, I can't imagine we're going to have any problems. So you can see what he looks like in action. You get to see how his damage output stacks up against, you know, someone like Ravenna, who is one exclusive level away from having her exclusive maxed. She's got my best gear. She's my highest level champ. You know, she's still my top priority. So don't look at the fact that she's tripling his damage and will probably quadruple it by the end of the battle as a negative to him. He's still doing pretty good damage here. And if she gets a good ult here, we might get a new best time. Yeah, I think that's a new best by 1 second. So he's pretty good in here. He does well in here. I tried to make him work in Terra, and I think he can work in Terra, but you kind of have to use him the same way you use Taylor, because I tried him at midline. I'll show you. I tried him, he's in backline now, but I've tried him in midline as well to see if on auto his shadow will make it into the circle, and it's like right on the edge. So, and I don't know about putting him frontline. I haven't tried that yet. But basically, you can just drag the same way you do Taylor. He doesn't have quite as big of a range, but you can still get the shadow in there. So if that's something you wanted to try in Terra, you know, you can do that as well to increase your damage a little bit. And then Disa, again, I reckon he could probably like be part of the team in Disa. I don't know that he's one of the optimal heroes for Disa. And then general progression, like obviously in Wasteland and Rift, he's going to fit into teams well. He's probably usable in Arena, but again, I'm at a point in Arena where I can't really slot him in and showcase him against the teams. I'd have to dive a little bit to get back in Arena where I could do that, because he doesn't have my optimal gear. I haven't invested super heavily in him. He is, however, a pretty important part of my current Ancient Altar setup. I'll card to the video up there I did recently about my entire Ancient Altar setup right now. He's part of that. And I think next week I'm going to be able to one-shot hard. And he's a big part of that team now. So I'll card to that video if you want to check out the details of how that setup works. But he's really good. He's had a pretty good impact on the team. And again, now I have a new fastest Kinsaro Marsh time. So let's take a look at him real quick. I'll show you the gear I've got on him, and I'll talk about how I plan to improve him over time. His ultimate is his shadow summon, basically. He summons a shadow at the target location. If the target location is occupied, it'll be summoned near the location. So you can't, I guess you can't summon him right on top of someone else, but I mean, obviously. When it's cast, when the shadow's already on the battlefield, it just brings a new shadow out. The shadow is a ranged unit with 130% of Sinway's attack and 90% of his defense and HP. Those are the only stats it's going to inherit from him. And then baseline, it's going to have a 30% crit. It's going to have 30% crit, 15% damage, and 500 attack speed bonus. And then again, you can see a little bit more of what he does here, but that's it. So the attack, HP, and defense are the stats he's going to affect. Sinway's attack, HP, and defense are the stats that are going to affect the shadow, and then he's going to have base level of the other things it mentioned, okay? Here we've got something called Chase Life. Basically, it puts a debuff on the enemy, and every time they lose 3% of their max HP, they receive extra damage equal to 95% of Sinway's attack. That can trigger up to 2 times per cast, and it lasts for 10 seconds. And then when you get his talent, it can trigger up to 3 times. So that's kind of decent. That adds up. A Flame Burst fires a fireball at the target enemy that explodes on impact, inflicting 210% attack as damage to the target, I think it should say, and all enemies within 2 meters. And then talent increases the range a little bit. And then here, when the battle starts, he gains 350 energy each time he casts a skill, then permanently gain 4% skill damage, while the shadow gains 3% attack. And the stacking limit goes up to 8 with the talent. So again, his talents are pretty important, as are everyone's. It's pretty important to get the talents going. And then his exclusive is actually pretty dope. I brought him up to 10. I think bringing him up to 20 would be a good move too, but it's going to depend on how heavily you want to invest in him. Because the purple runes are not so rare at a certain point. You're going to get your hands on purple runes. Did you see that flicker? That was weird. Purple runes are going to be relatively easy to come by. Gold runes are kind of scarce, but not unreasonable. Red runes you got to be real careful with. So depending on how heavily you want to invest in this dude, I think it's well worth taking him to 10. I think getting this perk from getting it to level 10 is dope. I do think getting it to level... Why is that happening? Is that just on his screen that it's flickering like that? Or is my... What's going on here? I don't even know if that's picking up in OBS, but either way. I do think getting him to 20 is a pretty big increase too. The Whirling Blade skill. He gains a whole new skill. And the Shadow throws a shuriken, inflicting 300% attack as damage to enemies in a line, then returning to deal damage again. That's pretty dope, especially in certain situations. So I think getting him to 20 is worth it. But again, it's going to depend on how heavily you want to invest in him. And then 30, again, there's so many other champs that you just need to prioritize getting to 30 before I think you think about getting him to 30. So I can't recommend that right now, regardless of how good it is. It is cool, but again, there's so many other champs you need to prioritize getting to 30 before him. So take him to 20 with caution, I guess is what I would say there. As far as his equipment goes, I really think all you need to do is stack attack on this dude. I've got some broken sets in here, but I kind of think the big thing you need to worry about is attack. Crit rate's not going to do him any good. Crit damage obviously is not going to do him any good. The only things that the Shadow are affected by, again, are attack, HP, and defense. So I think really just stack his attack so that the Shadow can pop off as hard as possible. So you'll see we've got attack across the bottom. I managed to get a Vigorous set on just to bump the HP a little bit, but I think the optimal way to do this is going to be attack sets all around with attack across the whole bottom. And I really don't think there's even much of an alternative. You know what I mean? Because none of the other stats are being moved over. And you really just want the Shadow doing as much damage as possible. So with decent support, I don't have much trouble keeping the Shadow alive. You know what I mean? So the more damage he can output, the better off you're going to be. So again, as I get my hands on the gear and my more important champs get upgrades, I'll be able to move some of the gear down and eventually get this dude on full attack sets. But he's a staple now in my Kinsaro team and my Ancient Altar team. I don't imagine he's going to come out of those teams for a while. I don't know who I'm going to slot in for him that's going to speed that up and keep it safe. You know what I mean? So he's a dope champ. This is a cool event. I like that they're putting unique champs, I guess, because Senway is kind of rare to summon. I don't know if his rates are lower. I feel like summon champs in general are lower rates. Where can we see that? Up here? I don't know why I feel like that. They have the same rates as several others, but I feel like... I don't know. I feel like I've pulled way less of Sinway. Sinway, Falvea, and Kane, I feel like I never pull. You know what I mean? So he's kind of rare. feels kind of rare anyway. But he's a really dope champ, so make sure you're staying on top of this Rise of Heroes event if you haven't been, because he's a great addition to the roster. And I'll do an update on my free-to-play account soon. I don't have the gear, I don't have any gear for him yet on my free-to-play, but I am collecting my frags. I think I've got him at Mythic 1. So we'll get to see him in action. I'll do a follow-up on this on my free-to-play when I get him geared, and we'll actually get to see how he can affect our progression, other areas of the game that he can do well in as we push up through story and Soul Mine and stuff like that. So there will probably be another chapter to this on my free-to-play account with him, and we'll get to see a different kind of impact he can have. But he's a dope champ. So there's a quick look at what he can do, how I'd recommend gearing him, and then again, we're going to do a follow-up on the free-to-play on him. So that's it. Get out of here. Appreciate y'all. Later.